One of the channels I'm subscribed to, or at least I watch, is Jaguar Gators channels, where he basically talks about the history and sometimes unknown history. I would say more along the behind-the-scenes history of a lot of certain games and all that, from the NFL to college. And he got me thinking about something, because you see, there are some games that he's touched upon college-wise that, from a bowl perspective, are not played anymore, but I think should be brought back, or at least be brought back in a way to where the name alone would probably bring more value to the venue where the current bowl game is being played at, or maybe even bring some spectators to a new location or back to a new location as previously seen in the past. So I've decided on here to sorry about that. But I've decided on here to list off 5 bowl games that I think they should bring back and maybe rename current bowl games after. So the first one was a bowl game he recently talked about that takes place in Tucson, Arizona at Wildcat Stadium. And that is, of course, the Copper Bowl. He talked about this recently because of the fact that the Copper Bowl used to be looked at as a very prestige, bowl game for anybody out of the Mountain West and WAC conferences. And he talked about how some teams, like Utah Utes, when they were part of the WAC/Mountain West, got snubbed one year due to, I guess, the basketball team doing better than expected, and pretty much the bowl selection community thought, hey, people would rather watch that, the basketball game that's playing on the same day, rather than watch the football game. And that was not the case. But anyway, the Copper Bowl was always looked at as I guess you could say, the second most important bowl game for mid-conference schools. So to me, I think if you want to give, the Sun Belt, you want to give the MAC, you want to give maybe the AAC, and maybe you want to give the Mountain West something to thrive for, and maybe even, once in a while rotate in some of the bigger conferences like, the Pac-12, the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 10, you name it, but mostly primarily focus on the smaller schools, smaller conferences, or mid-conferences, like I said, like the Sun Belt, the MAC, and the Mountain West. Then to me, I think bringing back the Copper Bowl would probably be the best solution. And more so, I think bringing it back and not only reinserting it back into the venue of Wildcat Stadium in Tucson, would be a great option. But I think replacing, or rebranding, I should say, the current Arizona Bowl as the Copper Bowl, the new version of the Copper Bowl, I think would be a great idea. And mostly I think it would also get, a lot of networks, not just streaming services like the Arizona Bowl was supposed to have last year, or I think they had last year, I'm not really sure, but it would also get other, as a matter of fact, did the Arizona Bowl happen last year? I don't think it did because of COVID, and some teams didn't want to play or something like that. But anyway, I think it would give it more recognition to the point that you wouldn't just have a streaming service wanting to be its primary home, but you would also have maybe CBS Sports Network, FS, Fox FS1 now, well, not FS1, but the Fox Sports, the Fox Sports Network, FSN, and if you will, maybe even ESPN, taking a jab at it and saying, hey, we want to cover this bowl game because it has a very recognizable name again. So to me, the Copper Bowl should be one of the bowl games brought back in name and it should basically be the new name, the new rebranding for the Arizona Bowl. So I think if there's any bowl to start out this list with that should be resurrected, should be put in the place of the current bowl game in the location it used to be in, I think the Copper Bowl, in my opinion, is a great way to go. The next bowl game I think they should bring back should be the Freedom Bowl. Now, I believe that the best place for this to come back at, believe it or not, would be Anaheim Stadium. And I know people are going to say it's been reconstructed, that's not really possible. Not entirely. You could still work around that. You could still work around getting that, field, I should say, restructured for football. They've done it with Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium, the new Yankee Stadium. So I think they'll be able to do it with Anaheim Stadium as we speak. So reconstruction aside, I think the Freedom Bowl should be brought back, for college football. And I believe it should be a bowl game that gets played on New Year's Eve. I think it should be brought back. I think it, should basically be a New Year's Eve game. And I think it should have, a representative from the Big Ten against a representative of the ACC. That's what I think. I mean, I know it's on the West Coast and everything, but if you want to give, the Big Ten and the ACC exposure to those, I mean, they get plenty of exposure, don't get me wrong. But if you want to give more exposure on a kind of grander scale, then I think the Freedom Bowl, with a representative from the Big Ten and the ACC, I think would be the best option. Now, the reason I also say this is because if, and apparently there's more news to this than we thought, if the USC and UCLA thing does officially go through and is officially finalized, and the reason I say if is because it seems that the governor of the state, that's right, not the governor of California not the governor, I should say, of California athletics, but the governor of the state of California, that being Newsom, apparently he was taken by surprise, shocked by UCLA's move and potentially USC's. So if he or someone that represents him steps in and says, no, you're not going to make that move, then, I would assume that any potential, home team that they could bring into the bowl game representing the Big Ten is out the window. But be that as it may, let's say, like I said, this officially goes through for both the Trojans and the Bruins, then if they bring the Freedom Bowl back, that being the NCAA, they bring it back, they put it in Anaheim like they did before, then I guarantee you, not only will you get a home crowd for one of those teams, at Anaheim Stadium for the Freedom Bowl, but you'll be guaranteed a sellout the first year you bring it back, if that's probably the year USC and UCLA are, start, playing in the Big Ten. Now I know people will say there's other options they could go with, right? Yeah, there's other options. The Memorial Stadium is a good option, don't get me wrong. SoFi Stadium is a good option, don't get me wrong. But SoFi, I think, would be better off with another bowl game, and I'll get into that in a moment. But to me, Anaheim Stadium, you created the Freedom Bowl there originally. You should bring it back there, and you should have it focus on a Big Ten and an ACC representative against each other. But if that's not the case, here's what you do. If one of the two conferences don't have enough bowl-eligible teams, or if one of both conferences have teams that are going to be playing in a playoff or a New Year's Six, then you have the Big Ten and the ACC, rotate with someone from the Pac-12. That's what you do. If the Big Ten has not enough bowl-eligible teams, or have teams going to be mostly on New Year's Day 6 bowls, and the college football playoffs, you have the Pac-12 take their place, you have a Pac-12 ACC. If the ACC is in the same veins as, the Big Ten, and then you have the Big Ten against the Pac-12, you have the Pac-12 take their place. Either way, you would be guaranteed a decent sellout, at Anaheim Stadium. So to me, the Freedom Bowl should be back with its primary representatives being against each other from the Big Ten and the ACC, with the potential wild card of the Pac-12 should, like I say, either one of the initial conferences don't have enough bowl teams, or the teams that they have, most of them are going to be onto bigger and better bowls, if you know what I mean. But anyway, initially I would go with the Big Ten and the ACC facing each other off in a returning Freedom Bowl in Anaheim Stadium. And that's just my opinion on that. Next up, another bowl I would like to see make a resurrecting return, and I mentioned this in the last one, is the California Bowl. And I can't think of a better bowl for it to, be rebranded as the California Bowl than the LA Bowl. That's right. The Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl, I think, should be branded to the Jimmy Kimmel California Bowl. And the reason being is you're having this bowl game played, depending on when it is, in the month of December, before or after the Christmas, in your new SoFi Stadium. A stadium that a lot of people have praised as being one of the best, recently built stadiums, not just in the country, but in the world. And a lot of people, believe it or not, do look at it as probably being the best built stadium in the state of California. If not, it's the be-all, end-all of stadiums in California. So what better way to really celebrate that accolade that people look at it as than to rename the bowl game that you have played in there from the LA Bowl to the California Bowl. You'd be resurrecting an old bowl name. You already pretty much have a sponsor in Jimmy Kimmel and potentially others. So why not bring that bowl game? So why not bring that bowl game name, I should say, back to Providence and do it in a big way? And here's the thing: traditionally, it was always the MAC against the Big West / WAC, right? It was always that way. Or actually, it was the MAC against the PACC, or the Pacific, or the PCCA, or I can't think of the name. Hold on, guys. Let me check something. Yeah, I was kind of almost correct. Let me kind of rewind that. What I meant to say is that it was traditionally always the MAC champion against the Big West / WAC champion, or even before either one of those conferences existed, the PCAA champion, the Pacific Coast Athletic Association champion. So what better way to kind of still stay true to that, than to basically allow the MAC and the Sun Belt, kind of have them rotate. The MAC and the Sun Belt, why not give them that grand stage? So the MAC or Sun Belt, depending on what conference has the most eligible teams to go bowling, mostly their champion, have their champion, go to the California Bowl, keep a tradition alive, one of the two. Whoever has probably the better record too, that could play. I guess you could say, what's the word? It could play a factor. So I was just thinking about the word there. My apologies. But it could play a factor in the decision. So I would say either Sun Belt or MAC champion, whoever has the better record, goes to the California Bowl, and you could have them go up against, whoever the champion of the Mountain West is. Have them go up against the Mountain West champion, or maybe an at-large opponent, depending whether or not the Mountain West champion, has a record that allows them to possibly get into a New Year's Day 6 Bowl, or maybe if they're lucky enough, a playoff game. So depending on that, you can have the Mountain West champion kind of staying in tradition as before, going up against the Sun Belt or the MAC champion record, depending on who has the better record, in this, in the resurrected California Bowl from SoFi Stadium. Now, I know some people might say, well, that wouldn't draw in a big crowd and you're wasting the capacity of a stadium. Let me explain something. Let me explain something to you guys, okay? There have been a lot of bowl games throughout the years, early bowl games that have started before Christmas, that have happened after Christmas, that they take place in large venues, but they don't sell out those large venues. They don't. They don't sell them out whatsoever. So because of the fact that they don't sell them out, they still play. They still play. They don't go like, oh, well, we didn't sell out, so no game today. No, they still play the game. They still play it, and on top of that, they continue to play the game year after year. Finances and all that depending, but they continue to play it year after year. So to me, California is a big market. It really is. And think about it this way too. You have 3 schools in the Mountain West Conference that are from California. 3. San Jose State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and potentially more on the way. So you have those 3 California-based schools. You can't tell me that if one of those schools wins the Mountain West this year or in the future, that they wouldn't help sell out decently, or at least give a decent ticket sailing, if you will, to that bowl game in LA against whoever the Sun Belt or MAC champions are. You can't tell me they wouldn't do that? Oh, believe me, they would. They would. San Diego State and Fresno State specifically, people would make the trip. Because Fresno is not that, well, it's far, but not too far from Los Angeles, and the same somewhat with San Diego State. San Jose is the furthest, but I can tell you right now, even if they won the Mountain West Conference in the future, if not this year, people would make the freaking tracks as quickly as possible, not just online to the California Bowl, LA Bowl, whatever you want to call it, to buy up the tickets. But they would be packing up the bags and everything and making that trip down to LA, Inglewood, if you will, to see the Spartans play. They would. And that's a fact. So to me, ladies and gentlemen, if you were to have one of those 3 California schools win, there is no doubt you would have a sellout. And having one of them in there would represent, justifiably the name, the rebranding of the bowl game to the California Bowl, because you would have California teams in it. Now, that's nothing against Colorado State, that's nothing against Boise State and Utah State and so on. But I'm just saying, the California schools would help really sell that out. I mean, why do you think anytime a WAC school, when some of them were part of the WAC, or even one of them when the Mountain West was created, I should say, why do you think anytime any of them got into a bowl game that was in Nevada, or a bowl game that was in, let's say San Diego, why do you think, or even San Francisco when the Red Box Bowl was going on there, and I think they still have a bowl game going on at times, why do you think those would sell out if those California schools got in? Even Pac-12 California schools like Cal, Stanford, UCLA, USC, why do you think they would sell out? Or at least have a decent turnout? Because they were from that state. Nobody had to buy tickets whatsoever to fly across. And even if they did, it was cheap because all they had to do was go from one location to the other. That was it. The point is, when your conference has schools from the state your bowl game is named after, being not only the champions of that conference, but also because of being champions, they automatically go into said bowl game. You can't tell me you wouldn't get a decent turnout, maybe even a sellout. So to me, when I look at the LA Bowl, I look at a bowl game that you have a sponsor in Jimmy Kimmel, maybe future sponsors as well. You have a new venue in SoFi Stadium that could hold a decent sized capacity. You can't tell me that if San Jose, Fresno, or San Diego won the Mountain West Conference, got into that bowl game, that wouldn't have a decent turnout, because it would. It definitely would. No matter who the Sun Belt or MAC champions that they'd be facing were. So to me, when I look at the LA Bowl at SoFi Stadium, I look at a bowl game that should be rechristened, resurrected, rebranded as the California Bowl, the new version of it, the Jimmy Kimmel California Bowl, and it should have representatives from both the Mountain West, MAC, or Sun Belt, but those representatives should be the champions, depending, though, on whether or not those champions don't have a good enough record, like undefeated, that can get them to a higher bowl game. And that includes the Mountain West. Now, if the Mountain West was to do that, then I would say give them an at-large opponent. Give them an at-large opponent and be done with it. Or if Pac-12 has somebody, get somebody from the Pac-12. So that's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. Primarily, you should have the Mountain West champ against the Sun Belt champ, or the MAC champ, depending on who has the better record, facing off in the California Bowl, which would be formerly the LA Bowl, at SoFi Stadium. And again, I guarantee you, if you were to get basically teams from California winning that Mountain West Conference in that bowl game, you're going to have a decent turnout no matter what, in my opinion. So to me, the LA Bowl, the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl, whatever it's going to be called or sponsored by this year, should be rechristened the California Bowl from SoFi. That's the way I look at it. All right, here's a bowl game that I think should be brought back, and I think it would be great for the Pacific Northwest. That is the Seattle Bowl. And I know you're thinking, well, I don't know about the Seattle Bowl. That's because it only ran for 2 times before financing could not be secured, and it was canceled after 2003. But to me, I think that if there's any bowl game that should, for the Pacific Northwest, besides the ones I mentioned for California, that up north should get a second chance, I think it should be the Seattle Bowl. I mean, when you look at the fact that you have the stadium that the Seahawks have to play it in, I don't see any reason why you can't have a game there, especially with the fact that originally, and you could resurrect it again, for its return, you have representatives of the Pac-12 and the ACC playing in it. So I don't see any reasoning why you can't basically bring it back. However, if I was to make a change, though, I would make the Mountain West an alternative for either the Big Ten or the Pac-12, depending on whether or not either has enough bowl-eligible teams, or if a lot of the bowl-eligible teams will be either playing on New Year's Day, close to on New Year's Eve, or part of the New Year's Day 6, or even a college football playoff game. I would make the Mountain West a rotating conference, or even a conference, an alternative choice, like I said, what I was trying to say, an alternative choice, just in case, like I said, one of the 2 other lead conferences do not have, or initial conferences do not have enough bowl-eligible teams, that being the ACC and the Pac-12. If I said the Big Ten earlier, I do apologize. But like I said, if the ACC has, teams going to New Year's Day 6 games and the playoffs, as well as even New Year's Eve games or New Year's Day games, period, then I would definitely have the Mountain West be an alternate choice just in case. And the same with the Pac-12. If they have a lot of teams going to New Year's Day games, New Year's Day 6 games, playoffs, then I would have the Mountain West as an alternative. But yeah, I look at sorry about that. But like I said, I look at the fact that, to me, the Seattle Bowl is in a good location, is in a great location, if you will. It's got a great venue to be played at. And like I said, from a Pac-12 ACC standpoint, you have very brand recognizable names playing in it potentially. I mean, think about this. Seattle, right? What college team is in Seattle? Oh, that's right, Washington. What is the rival? What other college team is the rival in said state? Oh, that's right, Washington State. What state is below them, I believe? What state is below them or around the same region, that could have, a huge fan base drawn up there or going up there? Oh, I don't know, Oregon State? I'm just saying. And what about California? You got Cal, Stanford, they can make the trip, Northern California people. And if you have to alternate a Mountain West team, San Jose State, Fresno State, and even if before they go to the Big Ten, you have USC, UCLA, San Diego State. This is a good, potential, like I said, fan base drawing bowl, that you could bring back. A lot of them would love to go up there. I know some of them may not be used to the weather at that time of year, but still be something that they can take part. They can take part in, enjoy the part of the holiday season, as a part of, if you will. It's what I'm trying to get at. I know I sounded very ramblish there. I do apologize. But like I said, there would be one way for them to enjoy the holiday season. And again, when you look at, like I said, the venue, its location, what better way can you have a bowl game? What better place to have a bowl game? I'm just saying. And with the ACC, not only do they get another bowl game they could play in, another potential place for a bowl-eligible team that might get snubbed to play in, but it's only once in a while that they'd have to travel across from where they are. Come on, you can't tell me that North Carolina, I think it's North Carolina, wouldn't, the fan base, wouldn't follow them to Seattle to see them play in a bowl game? Of course they would. They wouldn't be they probably wouldn't be able to, get most of the seats, due to the fact that whoever from the Pac-12 or Mountain West is there, it would basically outsell them. But still, you can't tell me North Carolina, Duke, North Carolina State, Miami, they wouldn't make that trip. They would. They definitely would. So to me, when I look at the Seattle Bowl, I look at the fact that not only do you give the Pac-12, ACC, and alternatively the Mountain West another bowl game to play in, but depending on the teams that would play in it from either one of those conferences, you could have a decent-sized crowd. Think about it this way too. Imagine if Boise State, before they hop over to the Pac-12 down the line, which is being rumored, imagine if they're the Mountain West representative. They're alternating in for, let's say, an ACC team. Imagine they're a big, the representative for the Mountain West, alternating in. And the Pac-12 team they face is Washington State. Holy smokes, you got yourself a sellout. Or imagine for a moment, if you will, Boise State against Washington. You got yourself a sellout. The thing I'm getting at is, if you go with the Pac-12 ACC representative model that you've done in the past, you continue keeping that, but you throw in the alternative of a Mountain West representative just in case there's not enough bowl-eligible teams, or, the ACC and the Pac-12 have a lot of teams that are bowl-eligible, but they're playing elsewhere, and mostly in the more important, bigger games. Again, the Mountain West, has an opportunity to jump in there. That's all I'm saying. They have a chance to jump in there. And Boise State, you can't tell me they wouldn't have a strong enough fan base to follow them over to, to Seattle, to Washington to see them play. You can't tell me they wouldn't. So to me, the Seattle Bowl, I think, is another game they should bring back. And I think they should bring it back not only in the same model they had before, ACC against Pac-12, but throw in the alternative of the Mountain West, just in case one of the two schools, committed to it originally, officially, don't have enough bowl-eligible teams, or a lot of the teams are either New Year's Day 6, or college football playoff bound. So to me, the Seattle Bowl should be one that is brought back. And last but not least, the last bowl game I think they should bring back, and the East, needs some love. I know they got the Fenway Bowl. I know they got the New Era Pinstripe Bowl. I know all that. But there's one bowl game, when I was looking up, okay, what potential bowl games could they bring back, that caught my interest. And even though it went for a few years, and a lot of people blame and cite freezing temperatures and lack of teams and all that or whatever, I think this is a good game you can bring back. I mean, it's been over 40 years since it was last played, and you see it right in front of you right now. I think we should bring back the Garden State Bowl. And here's the thing that I think may have hurt it originally when it started. You were basically bringing in teams from the Pac-12, initially the Pac-8 at that time, to compete against teams from, what was it, the Eastern conferences, like the Big East, SEC, something like that. You were bringing them in. And these teams at the time were always used to natural winter weather in the region, which was decently warm, mild, whatever. They weren't used to the freeze. So to me, I think if you're going to bring back this bowl game, and I think they should for MetLife Stadium, because again, times have changed, and I'm sure MetLife is more accommodating to go against the freezing weather and all that. I think if you're going to bring this game back, you need to make it between the ACC and the AAC. That's what I think. Both teams are in that region. It should be the AAC and the ACC playing in the Garden State Bowl. That's what I think. It makes more sense. Now you might say, well, what about the SEC? That's another option. What about the Big Ten? That's another option. But to me, honestly, I think you should go with the ACC and the AAC. I mean, when you think about it, the teams that are in that conference, honestly, yeah, some of them are from warm weather states like Houston, don't get me wrong. But I think, honestly, they would probably fit in better. And so I'm just it's scratching my t-shirt there. I felt a little itch there. But I think if you look at the majority of the other teams there, I think it would work. And I'm sure the Cougars of Houston wouldn't mind if they got into it to go up there and play. Now you might say, okay, well, what if one of the conferences don't have enough teams? What if one of the conferences don't have enough teams? And again, I'm just scratching. I feel like a little itch on my shirt there. But I know you're probably asking, well, what if some of those conferences don't have enough bowl eligible teams? That's a good question. And to me, I look at it like this. If neither conference, I should say, have enough bowl eligible teams, then I think an alternative should be Conference USA. I think Conference USA, the CUSA, should have an alternative opening to them. They should be given that alternative bid just in case the AAC and the ACC either don't have enough bowl eligible teams, or a lot of their teams that are bowl eligible, as I mentioned before, end up being in New Year's Day games, New Year's Day 6, or even playoffs. So I think initially the two conferences that should have a tie-in should be, the AAC and the ACC, with the alternative choice being a team from Conference USA. That's just my pick. That's just my picks of the conferences that I think should get into a resurrected Garden State Bowl game. And on top of that, like I said, you now have MetLife Stadium that's bigger, more grander than Giant Stadium, if you will, being, a true modern day venue that I think can withstand any weather that gets thrown its way. That, this return of a bowl game would really benefit from being in that venue. And fans from the AAC conferences and the ACC conferences and even the alternative choice of the Conference USA, I think these fans would be okay with bearing the cold just for 1 week, 1 day, whatever, a few days to see their team play. So to me, the last bowl game, I think that should be brought back because you have the venue for it now at MetLife Stadium, should be the Garden State Bowl, with the initial tie-in conferences being the AAC in the ACC with an alternative, Conference USA, as a choice, just in case they don't have enough bowl eligible teams, or if they do, and those teams are either playing New Year's Day, New Year's Day 6 bowl games, or playoffs. And that's about it on it. So I believe the Garden State Bowl game at MetLife Stadium should be brought back. And that's all I'm going to say in closing. These 5 bowl games that I brought up should not only be brought back in, resurrected entirely, but also, as I mentioned with some of them earlier, should rebrand the current bowl games out there today. Because I think with a rebranding and everything, it's going to help not only bring more name value to the bowl game and the venue it's taking place in, but also, if you have a young fan that's into college sports and wants to know more about something like a California Bowl game or the Garden State Bowl games, they can look it up and be like, oh, so that's where it was initially at, or oh, so this is why it ended and now it's brought back. So to me, these are the 5, in my opinion, that should be brought back. They should. The California Bowl, the Freedom Bowl, the Seattle Bowl. What other one did I talk about? Yeah, sorry about that. But like I said, the Copper Bowl, the Freedom Bowl, the California Bowl, the Seattle Bowl, and the Garden State Bowl. These are the 5, in my opinion, that should be brought back because times have changed. And if you basically continue the conference tie-ins and maybe with a few alternatives thrown in there, depending on region and location, I think you will have not only some good bowl games on your hands in the future, but you'll definitely have a lot of people talking about these bowl games as time goes on. I believe nowadays the revenue, the financing will be a lot better. And again, it'll bring more prestige to the bowl games as they currently are if you either rebrand those bowl games under these original names, these classic names, or even resurrect them for the postseason. So those are just my 5, guys. Let me know what your 5 are. Which bowl games do you think should be brought back in your opinion? Let me know down below in the comments as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super Chat, super stickers, as described in the description, are open and would be appreciated. Super thanks afterwards as well will be appreciated after the premiere. Let me know, guys, again down below, which bowl games do you think should be brought back. Also check out my Teespring store for items you can't get anywhere else. Also check me out at patreon.com/BWRoses, Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2, and at Cash App at BWRoses98. As well as at TikTok at 98, at BWRoses98, I should say. TikTok at BWRoses98. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are down below and in the live chat. Which bowl games do you think should be brought back? Do you agree with some of the choices I've made? Let me know down below and in the live chat.